May I now request our chief guest, Dr. Ishwa H.V., Professor and Acting Head, Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology, to kindly address the gathering.
Respected Father Matthew, Dr. Matthew Tingumbali, CMI, Father Paul Mangad, CMI, Father Tinto Pulinchuvalli, CMI, Thomas Vani sir, all the esteemed priests here, the great teachers who are going to shape the future generations of Christ-Nagarians, as we used to be called when we were young, and my beloved students. I must begin with a confession. I stand here with a sense of great happiness and, more than that, honor to be here, transformed from being a student to a person who is big enough, big within quotations, to address the students here. I started off in the last rows of class 5 here in the 1980s, stood in the assembly lines, heard, saw, and absorbed what the teachers and all the eminent people whom I had the chance to be exposed to when I was in the school. And I would be failing as a human being if I do not acknowledge what Christ-Nagar has done to me as a student here. I'm sure that the new generation here would definitely find this as a rumblings of an old man in his the new generation. But then I would fail as a human being if I do not acknowledge what my teachers have done to me in the years in Christ-Nagar. I have been swept by a wave of nostalgia and all the reminiscences of all those days that I have spent here in this very present campus. It used to be known as a Christ-Nagar English High School in those days. And we were shaped by a set of teachers who worked day and night. There was no mobile, so we had only the school. So we used to spend most of our time in school. Even if the school ends at 3:30, we'll be around for some more time. They helped us in many ways. I would recall my English teacher, Father Berthold, CMI, who was a tough, no-nonsense guy. He would punish you for even the slightest mistakes. But such was his passion for teaching that he made me write in 4-line book right into my 10th standard to improve my handwriting. Today, if I have not fallen to the doctor's dead habit of bad handwriting, it's because I owe it to Father Berthold. Interestingly, there was a science fair going on when I was in 9th standard, and Dr. C.R. Salmon, who was an eminent nutrition expert, was delivering a lecture on what is good nutrition. Dr. C.R. Salmon was a very good English speaker, user of English language. His accent was perfect, British. So I was sitting next to Father Berthold, and Father Berthold looked at me and said, "Listen to his speech." My response was, "Father, his pronunciation is very good." Immediately, he gave me one nice whack on my back and said, "It is not pronunciation, Ishwar, it is pronunciation." The rules of accentuation and syllabification which he has taught me has stood me in good stead in the years in medicine and later. The reason was simple. English was the language of science. For a boy who is coming from very humble, modest background, the ability to learn the English language helped me understand the nuances in science, which helped me to read more and more of medical textbooks, which made me what I am today. Thank you, Father Berthold, for what you have done to me. I must also, this is confession time, so this is my second confession. I have never got a first rank in all my school and college days. But I was never the last ranker. You know, there were teachers who were telling me, "Why don't you work hard and be better?" I would listen to them, but I would only do what I liked. But the most important thing was they guided me into the world of knowledge and academics, which in turn helped me to learn medicine and all the difficult training that a neurosurgeon has to undergo. Father Gerald was always an inspirational leader. He always had a quote for every assembly. And these quotes remain in the back of my brain all those years. Even in recent times, when there was a WhatsApp group discussion of our school group, the quotes of Father Gerald Tevelascheril came up. His most favorite quote was, "If there was a will, there will be a way. If you resolve to do something and put all your energy into it, focus into it, you will attain it." Whatever it is, it can be academic, it can be non-academic, it can be art, literature, everything. So if there is a will, there will be a way. And he taught me another basic line, this basic thing about excellence. If you want to be show some eminence in whatever you're doing, that comes through excellence only. So his line in the morning was, "Eminence is always through excellence." Put your hard work, put your diligence, put your focus. Don't get distracted. Work towards your goal. That was Father Gerald's lines for us in the morning. His best lines were given when I left the school in 1986. On the day when our last assembly took place, he told children, "Good, better, best, never let them rest. Good, better, best, never let them rest until good becomes better and better becomes best." So, never let them rest until good becomes better and better becomes best. So remember these lines. It has helped me in my years of struggle to become a neurosurgeon. And I'm sure this will help you too. I hope this message has not gone past its expiry date. We live in very difficult times. I have stopped my confessions now. We live in very difficult times, COVID has taken away many of the things that we used to do in everyday life before March last year. We are all fighting a battle which has led us to change our ways. There has been a lot of hardships, pain, agony, and loss of lives. Dr. Anil Satyadas here is a great COVID warrior who mans the intensive care unit in Medical College, taking care of a lot of COVID patients. There are a lot of people who have lost their lives. Anil and I have survived almost till date. We still don't know what is going to happen in future days. What is important for us to realize is that human race takes a lot of pride in its achievements. We have made huge strides in technology, in science, in every realm of life. We have tamed rivers, built huge dams, we have sent satellites, we have developed DNA technology, and everything to prolong life. I'm sure you must have read about this book by Yuval Noah Harari, a Jewish historian, who came up with a book called Sapiens. It's about the evolution of humankind. It's written in the most lucid way. I would recommend that all parents buy this book for their children. He says that the insecurity that every human being faces, whether he is in the 14th century, whether he's a 14th century peasant living on the banks of the Seine River in France, or a very successful stockbroker, rich with a private jet, who lives in the New York and Manhattan, suffer from the same insecurity about his life, about his livelihood, etc. So things have not changed. This is very true in the days that we have seen in the last, since this viral epidemic started in Wuhan, in China. What has happened is, if you count the weight of all the viruses that has killed so many people, crippled so many people, made a lot of people poor, it will not even come to 5 grams. That is where the human race should ponder. Whatever be our successes in technology, in science, making money, in making ourselves secure and safe. Nature has a way ahead of us. So we need to always be humble about what we do in our lives. Because whatever is there today will not be there tomorrow. But the good thing about what the human race has done to battle the COVID crisis is very interesting. We have scrambled all our resources to ensure that we beat this pandemic. We have come up with social distancing and other non-medical measures to prevent the disease from spreading from one person to another. We have come up with drugs to counter the effects of the virus inside the human body. We have come up with novel methods of putting patients on ventilator to battle the lung damage that happens with the COVID disease. And more importantly, in such a short time, humanity came up with a vaccine. We have some hope today because there is a vaccine for us. But then let's not rest on our laurels, because tomorrow there will be a different virus which we may have to combat again. But then the onus of combating all those viruses with scientific research, with medical technology, with the tender, loving care of nursing personnel of tomorrow lies in the shoulders of people who sit here, who occupy the classrooms of Christnagar and all the other schools here. So you have a big responsibility in your hands. School should also be a serious time to contemplate on what you intend to do to yourself and to the human beings around you. It is important that you must be able to come up with devices which help fellow human beings. Often, I find that the current generation is accused as being selfish because they spend more time glued to the screens, glued to televisions, glued to computers and mobiles than interacting with fellow human beings. But the truth is, we need to use those devices not just to destroy ourselves from our goals and objectives, but to use them to counter the threats to humankind in the years to come. As a neurosurgeon, I have to relate to something in neurology and neurosurgery which should be of help to you when you make decisions about your lives. There is a part of the brain called as the nucleus accumbens. This is a very tiny part of the brain right in the center of the brain. It's even difficult to see even with a microscope. What the nucleus accumbens does is it secretes a chemical called as dopamine. And the combination of the nucleus accumbens along with its chemical effector called as the dopamine is to confer on you a sense of happiness. It is called as the reward center of the brain. So what does the reward center do? It remains idle most of the time, but it seeks the pursuit of happiness through many ways. The biggest trigger of nucleus accumbens is cocaine. People who are addicted to cocaine have a lot of activity going on in the nucleus accumbens. But then nucleus accumbens is not happy just with having cocaine inside our body. It is also happy when you have a lot of money. When you put a lot of money in your bank, the nucleus accumbens starts secreting dopamine, which makes you feel good, which makes you seek more and more of money, more and more of cocaine, and more of self-destruction. But the good news is, it is not just these two things which trigger the nucleus accumbens. When you help somebody, a poor man or a fellow human being, the nucleus accumbens gets activated. Philanthropy is one of the biggest methods of kindling the nucleus accumbens. When you have, it is called as helper's high. You get a high when you help somebody. When you finish a marathon, you still find yourself capable of running another 200 meters. And that is called as the runner's high. Again, what gets kindled is when you finish a marathon or a long distance running is the nucleus accumbens. When you listen to music, the nucleus accumbens gets triggered and secretes dopamine. So my dear children, Get your nucleus accumbens triggered by the positive things of accomplishments, music, sports, etc. Let us not confine our nucleus accumbens to cocaine and all the other drugs that are available freely. My simple message to you is, through this, is do not self-destruct. Every day in Sri Chitra and Medical College and the Regional Cancer Center located in our adjacent campuses, there are hundreds of people coming there with only one prayer: a healthy life, a few more days of life, afflicted with cancers, deadly diseases. On one side, you have people pleading for more. On the other side, I find a lot of people on a course of self-destruction, using drugs, alcohol, smoking, etc. Remember, good health is a great blessing of God. Use that wisely. Don't use your health to be destroyed by addictions like alcohol, smoking, and drugs. I'm sure that I have already crossed the time limit set by myself and Father Matthew. For me, interestingly, the human concentration span is only 20 minutes, beyond which I can even put you to sleep. Let me finish my talk to you today, my address to you today, with those beautiful lines of Saint Francis of Assisi. Oh God, give me the courage to change what I can. Change whatever you can. But you need the courage to do that. Give me the humility to accept what I cannot change. There are hundreds of things in our lives which we cannot change. But we need to accept that. If you break our heads on things which we cannot change, then we will lose our direction. And the most important thing is the wisdom to know the difference between what I can change and what I cannot change. God, give me the courage to change what I can, the humility to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. May you all have a happy and healthy life. God bless you. Thank you very much.